powerful sea waves crash against each other, sometimes rising, sometimes retreating again. "O Stuckle, Lord of the Misty Straits, we sacrifice 2 women to the body, so protect our ship." Loud male voices were heard shouting over the noise of the water. The girl stood on the bow of the ship, and from behind they urged her to jump quickly. "Quickly! Become victims! Jump!" people shouted, but she was unbearably afraid. She couldn't believe that she would die like this. She just boarded the ship to meet her fiancé, so how did she end up in this situation? But besides her, there was another girl here, whose hair sparkled with light gold. "Hey, move faster!" she shouted to the first girl and thrust her leg forward with all her strength. She didn't immediately understand what was happening, but she realized that she was no longer standing on the bow of the ship. The next moment she realized that she was flying straight into the arms of the waves, and she only managed to scream briefly when the sea swallowed her up. What was that only one of the previously screaming pirates managed to ask? And the long-haired blonde, with a sense of accomplishment, sighed contentedly. "Then I'll go too," she said, and with a very technical and beautiful run-up she jumped into the water. This caused silent admiration among the onlookers, who realized that she was a crazy woman. And the first girl was drowning, and several thoughts were spinning in her head. Was she really going to die like this? And why did that woman kick her? But the air in her lungs was running out, and she couldn't breathe. Suddenly, a small glowing bubble appeared very close. A blonde with a bubble in her hands swam quickly towards the girl. And as soon as she got closer to her, she put this bubble on the girl's head like a helmet. All she managed to notice before losing consciousness was the trident tattoo on the strange stranger's neck. And for a moment a fishtail flashed. Could it really have been a siren? The large ship rocked rhythmically on the waves of the calm sea. The girl was awakened by an insistent sound she did not understand where she was. But as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw sailors scurrying around everywhere and also heard a very familiar voice. "Are you neglecting waitresses? A waitress can swim well too, and if there is a maritime disaster, we are obliged to rescue the passengers," said the girl, whose name was Sela Cardi. The young man in glasses asked her if she had saved the passenger out of a sense of duty, and the girl, with a wide smile, answered in the negative. "Because of money," she explained, and the man sarcastically noted that this was a very realistic reason. Sela didn't give up. If the company found out about her feat, she would get a promotion and her weekly salary would increase, but the man noticed that there were too many suspicious details, considering that she was a waitress, and he was also embarrassed by her clothes. The girl immediately threw the blanket off her shoulders, and the man, horrified, asked her to cover herself. "This is a wetsuit. I picked up a discarded sail at the pier and sewed it myself. It's waterproof and keeps you warm, but it's not elastic, so it fits a bit tight." Sela showed off her clothes. The sailor in glasses calmed down a little and said that he would return her things later, and also gave his name, Russell, and as soon as he did this, a loud sneeze was heard from the side. Both speakers fell silent and stared at the source of the sound. The girl was frightened by the fact that they both headed towards her. "Good afternoon, my lady." The blonde suddenly found herself too close to her. Sela asked if she was okay and also told her his name. She understood why the girl was so afraid of her that she was literally shaking, but she needed to gain Maria's trust by any means necessary. After all, Maria is the main character in the novel The Duchess, who fled to the sea. And she, Sela Cardi, is a waiter on a passenger ship. According to the plot, she was supposed to die quickly as a minor character. But for the sake of survival, she saved the noble lady Maria Rodnelli standing in front of her. Ever since she woke up in this world 3 weeks ago, she had been meticulously planning to get captured by pirates, throw Maria into the sea before she was killed, take her to land, and eventually managed to change the original story. And here is her plan to save Maria from mortal danger, receive a reward for this from numerous aristocratic heroes, and escape from the clutches of the main villain. The girl's main dream is to buy a house by the sea with a blue roof, white walls, a small pier, and a small boat with a triangular sail. And until the story ends, hiding there, the very thought of a quiet life by the sea already tickles the soul. Since childhood she loved the sea. It was her only friend, full of mysterious creatures. Even when she lost her parents at 15 and went through difficult times, it was the sea that always supported her. To see its depths, she learned to dive, entered a maritime university to study the marine ecosystem, and saved money for a trip to the sea. But she died stupidly in a car accident, but there is something good. Here she can finally fulfill her dream. "When you fell into the sea, my lady, you were barely breathing," Sela explained to Maria. The girl asked in surprise if it was really a dream that she was breathing in a bubble of air and that she saw a siren in the water. Sela was scared and began to fervently insist that it was definitely a dream because she was unconscious, and at that time she thought that if anyone found out that she was using the powers of the sirens, she would have problems. In any case, my lady, you had better hide your origin, Sela noted, and Maria suggested that it was because of Admiral Elaim. That's right, Elaim is the main villain of the novel. He commands this warship and leads the most powerful siren military in the world. Elaim rescued Maria from the sea, but upon learning of her noble origins, he collected from her a debt with interest for the rescue, and so Maria's life turned into a thorny path. But he is lenient towards commoners. If they pretend to be commoners, they will not cross paths with him. They say he always demands payment for his help, and he's even harsher with nobles, Sela warned. But Maria thanked her for her concern and said that she was going to reveal her true nature. As she said this, Maria seemed to shine. Sela was impressed. Here was the real Maria, noble blood, who gave up herself for the sake of her family, selfless and honest. That's why she loved this heroine, but this is too much. We need to find a way to break her stubbornness. Sela asked what if he demanded a huge sum, but the lady immediately replied that she had a dowry and she would use part of it. And if it demands your life, the blonde said ominously. Maria was scared, but Sela continued to say that she hid her identity to protect her, and lying on a military ship is a serious crime. It's still better to die. Wake me up when the guillotine is ready. Sela leaned back with feigned indifference, and she began to complain that even saving a life, she did not receive anything good, apparently. Such was her fate. All that was left was to die. Maria was already very scared, but Sela decided to finish her off and said with a smile that at least there was someone to listen to her will. If I die, bury me by the sea. Her words sounded eerie, even though a smile shone on her face. Sela breathlessly said that she had no relatives, so there was no need for a tombstone, but when Maria had a child, let her tell him about the kind waitress who saved her and died, that she dreamed of living by the sea, but died without fulfilling her dream, but was able to fulfill it in heaven. I will do everything you said, just don't talk about death, Maria cried out, completely frightened, and grabbing the girl by the hands, asked her to tell her more about her dream. I want to help you too, Maria said sincerely. Sela even felt embarrassed. It seemed her words had an even better effect. Admiral Elaim sat in the darkness of his office, smoking a cigar and looking at the documents on his desk. There was a knock on the door, and after putting out his cigarette, the man allowed Russell to enter. Turn on the light, it's too dark in here, said Russell Parker, Elaim's assistant, with displeasure. Elaim replied that he dozed off for a moment, but his assistant interrupted him, asking him not to lie, as he was reading the letters again. The Admiral was not going to argue about this and demanded a report from his assistant. Having received the paper, I began to read the enemy ship was sunk by their attack. There were no surviving pirates, only 2 women were saved, and one of them was in some kind of wetsuit. The man hesitated at the last phrase and reread it again. A wetsuit? What's that? He asked, but the assistant only blushed and turned away. The rather indecent expression on Elaim's face did not escape Elaim's notice, and he repeated his question. Pulling himself together, Russell explained that this was special clothing for underwater swimming, and when the Admiral asked where he could buy it, he replied that the girl had sewn it herself from a discarded sail. You're sure you interrogated her properly? Elaim asked, not believing that a simple waitress could have pulled off such a thing, and the assistant answered in the affirmative, noticing that she was answering very strangely, but offered to double-check. But Admiral Elaim slammed the table decisively. No need. I'll take care of it myself. You can tell me the rest on the way, he said, getting up from his seat. According to the report, this suspicious woman swam hundreds of meters while carrying the unconscious victim, a feat difficult even for a well-trained Marine. She is indeed an ordinary waitress from a passenger ship, the Admiral clarified. Adjusting his glasses, Russell confirmed that she had said so. Their conversation was interrupted by another soldier hurrying towards them, and he was quite frightened. Stuckel has appeared, he shouted, stunning the officers. He attacked a fishing boat. Only 1 fisherman survived, but he is also in danger. As his boat is sinking, the last known position of Stuckel was longitude 129 degrees 30 minutes, latitude 25 degrees 10 minutes. Now he has disappeared into the depths of the sea. The Admiral realized that Stuckel was trying to escape through the underwater canyon, and when his assistant asked what to do, he replied that while they were preparing the lifeboat, the monster could escape. We will have to abandon the fishermen and act immediately, but we cannot leave the fishermen to certain death. A decision must be made. While the girls were talking in the cabin, it became too noisy outside. Fisherman overboard came a loud cry and both girls jumped up. Sella clearly heard the military discussing that it would take 20 minutes to lower the boat, but the Admiral ordered that Stuckel be pursued. She understood that when a person is in the water, even a short time can cost him his life, and now the waves are strong, which makes the situation more dangerous. Time is running out, so why are they all hesitating? If the fleet can't do anything, then she will save it herself, because she cannot stand aside. Having made her decision, she immediately took action. Sella took a running start and jumped into the water with ease, and surprised cries were heard all around. Once underwater, she looked around for the fisherman. Luckily, she found him quickly and very close by, surrounded by the wreckage of the boat. Determined to save him at any cost, the girl stretched out her hand. Obeying her mental command, an oxygen cylinder appeared in her hands. In the same way, Sella got herself flippers for her feet. Fully prepared for rescue, the girl thought that it was probably precisely for moments like these that her magic had awakened. 2 months ago, she was reborn in a novel and, trying to adapt to an unfamiliar world, got a job, but was caught in a storm and washed out to sea. In the icy water, the life force gradually faded, but she met a siren, shining like the sun, and remembered her past life, remembered her cherished dream of living next to the sea. She had a dream, but her past life ended in such vain, and in her new life she forgot about it and existed without a purpose. All this remained in her as a heavy burden of regret, but it kindled the will to survive and make her dream come true. And when she thought about what she needed to survive, she was able to use this magic. Having placed the same bubble on the drowning fisherman, the girl picked him up and swam to the surface. If Stuckel appears, aiming at the waitress, we attack, rescue the fisherman and the waitress immediately, the Admiral gave orders. And having ordered the boat to be lowered into the water, he himself also went into the water. The further the boat sailed, the more clearly Elaim felt the magic from the depths of the sea. Magic similar to his magic, and this aura is getting closer and closer. While the Admiral was wondering what it was, long white hairs appeared above the surface of the water. A waitress saved a fisherman. Screams were heard as the girl emerged, dragging the unconscious man with her. While helping her lift the fisherman, the soldiers continued to admire her for her heroic actions. The first to be lifted was the fisherman, who, fortunately, was still breathing, while Elaim volunteered to help the girl. Confidently but carefully, he pulled her hand. Sella was breathing heavily and could hardly see who was helping her. The Admiral, on the contrary, looked closely at the girl and noticed a faint glow on her neck. However, understanding her condition, he only silently threw his jacket over her shoulders. Touching this woman, the throbbing headache subsided and my mind cleared. But how can she use the same magic as him? Without stopping to look at this strange waitress, Elaim's gaze caught on the neckline of her clothes. Embarrassed, the man turned away, not noticing what happened next. And Sella suddenly leaned forward and fell right on the Admiral. The girl was so overworked that she simply lost consciousness. She opened her eyes because the light was too bright, waking her up. Feeling very sleepy and with a heaviness in her eyelids, the girl asked out loud where she was. "You're in the infirmary," a male voice answered her. The man stood a little further away, hidden by a fluttering curtain, and explained that she had been unconscious for 2 days. The girl praised herself for a good job. It seemed that she was completely exhausted, using them over and over again by the way. Although this man is unknown to her, his voice is pleasant. "The fisherman came too, but you still didn't wake up." "The military doctor said it was due to severe fatigue and hypothermia," he said. Sella could hardly believe it, but she realized that the decadent-looking man she had seen on the boat had brought her here. Her visitor suddenly asked her why she saved the fisherman, and after thinking for a bit, the girl replied that it was simply because she wanted to save him. "I have a special power that allowed me to do this, and if I had turned away and he died, this unpleasant feeling would have haunted me all my life," the girl explained with a smile. The man accepted her answer, but because of the curtain, Sella could not see his face. "What will you do when we get off the ship?" he asked. The girl replied that she needed to return to the passenger liner and get a promotion. Then the visitor asked if she had any reason to work on a passenger liner at all. The reason was that she could often see the sea. Then the man asked why she didn't work somewhere near the port. But he didn't understand that Sella liked the clear sea, which could only be seen by sailing far from the shore. This man has such a pleasant voice that the girl, without noticing it, continues her conversation with the stranger, but she again feels sleepy. You love the sea, you have good judgment, and you are brave. It's a pity to waste such talent on working on a passenger liner. I want to hire you. What do you say? He asked. Feeling increasingly sleepy, Sela asked again if he meant the Siren Navy. And then she herself answered that she didn't want to. The military's salary was low, there was no freedom, and the very thought of joining the service was unpleasant to her. She uttered the last word with difficulty and fell silent, closing her eyes. She fell asleep, that's how it is, the man said in surprise. Admiral Elaine was just about to tell her to think about it when she fell asleep. Leaning over the sleeping girl, he thought that she was a very strange girl, such a strange girl that he wanted to hold her close and get to know her better. 3 days later, the warship arrived at Port Herbert. "Madam Heroine, have a safe journey, be healthy," the sailors shouted to her with admiration. Sela felt awkward being called a heroine just because she saved people twice. "Please wait a minute," they shouted at her when she and Maria were about to leave. The same sailor in glasses said breathlessly that he had an urgent message for her, and Sela became wary, wondering if they had revealed Maria's identity. "What happened, Mr. Sailor with glasses?" she asked, shielding Maria with her body. The man said his name was Russell Parker and handed her a knife, which he promised to return upon arrival at the port, as well as money for the journey in gratitude for saving the sailor. Sela thanked him for the money but hurried to leave as quickly as possible. She had a bad feeling. "No, why are you in such a hurry? I really need to tell you something." Russell was perplexed, and the girl realized that her premonition had not deceived her. "The Admiral has offered you a job," the sailor said in a solemn tone. Sela didn't understand what Admiral Elaine had to do with it. Was he really the man with the pleasant voice whom she had seen in the infirmary? "Excuse me, but did the Admiral happen to come to see me in the infirmary?" She decided to make sure right away. And she was horrified to hear that this was indeed the case. The fleet had already rescued many shipwrecked people, but this was the first time the Admiral had personally visited the hospital. And she had to get in touch with Elaine. Her peaceful sea life would definitely come to an end. She needed to cut off all ties as soon as possible. "I refuse your offer," Sela said firmly, raising her hand for emphasis. Russell asked her to think again. If the commute was a concern, they would provide her with a dormitory, and the weekly rent would be much higher than at her current place. "Thank you very much. Please tell the Admiral that I decline his offer," the girl said and bowed low. "I am very much indebted to you for everything. May the blessing of the god Okeanos be with the Siren fleet." Sela smiled charmingly, hoping that this was the end of the conversation. Russell shouted after her that if she changed her mind, she should come to them. They would spend a week in Port Herbert. Sela quickly moved away, indignant that he was being too persistent. Is she really such a valuable asset, or did the Admiral notice her using magic? Soon the girls were approaching the estate of the Duchy of Herbert. Sela looked around the surroundings from the carriage window with delight. Now all she has to do is receive her reward from the Duke, and she is free. "Madam, is something bothering you?" "You don't look well," she asked Maria, who had become quiet next to her. The young lady was very worried that because of her kidnapping, they were unable to properly prepare for the wedding, which caused great inconvenience to their families. The Duke and her parents must have been very worried about her. Sela listened to her with great sympathy. Maria, who always put others before herself and never showed how hard it was for her, now decided to share her experiences with her. The reason, of course, was love. Duke Herbert is the protagonist of this novel and the sworn enemy of the villain Elim. Maria and the Duke fell in love at first sight, but they are unaware of their mutual feelings. They both mistakenly believe that their love is unrequited, and as a result, they will have an unhappy family life. Moreover, because of Elaine, the misunderstanding between them will only worsen. "Were you worried about what the Duke would think of you?" Sela asked, deciding to intervene before things went too far. Maria asked in fear how she had guessed this, but the girl only laughed. She hugged the lady and laughingly offered to make a bet. "You're betting that the Duke doesn't like you," Sela said in a harsh voice. And then, in a conspiratorial whisper with a cheerful smile, she added that she herself was betting that the Duke loved her just as much as before. The loser gets a flick from the winner. Sela stunned Maria since she saved the main character. Let her be happy. Maria Rodnelli stood by the window, visibly nervous, waiting for something to happen. Soon, a noise and a muffled scream were heard behind her. Lady Rodnelli, Duke Herbert was in a great hurry and was worried, which was reflected in his flushed face. Maria was happy to see him, but at the same time she was embarrassed. The man also felt embarrassed, not knowing what to say. "Are you okay?" he asked hesitantly, but trying to look relaxed. The girl blushed completely and, apologizing for making him worry, hesitantly raised her hand. Fortunately, the Duke did not hesitate, but gently took the girl by the hand. I won. I really won, thought Sela, watching the lovers. Her Saratov talents turned out to be too good. A heavy male hand fell on the table with a loud sound. So, in short, you want to buy a secluded house in Moulton? Duke Herbert asked sternly. Sela confidently confirmed without explaining that a Mediterranean-style seaside town is what she dreams of, but Herbert was interested in why it was in Moulton, especially since living alone, without a family, could be dangerous. Sela insisted that this was her dream, and that this was what she wanted. Realizing that he couldn't convince her, he wearily asked if she really loved the sea so much. Yes, I love it, Sela confirmed with a dazzling smile, so much so that it frightened the Duke. The man wondered if he was doing the right thing by bringing this crazy woman closer to him, and at that moment the girl sitting next to him touched his hand. Looking at his bride, the Duke blushed, as did the girl, but she quietly said that Sela was her savior, and she also wanted to help her realize her dream. Looking into Maria's pleading eyes, the Duke realized that if it weren't for the sea-obsessed girl, Lady Rodnelli wouldn't have survived. Okay, I'll help you buy the house you want, but in return you'll have to keep everything that happened to Lady Rodnelli a secret, the man said. Maria will become his wife, and if gossips find out that she was captured by pirates, they will certainly find a flaw in this. I don't want her to become the subject of their gossip, Duke Herbert said sternly. Sela happily promised to do it for the lady. It wasn't that difficult for her. The man handed her money, more than enough to buy her a house. And then, looking at Mary's savior, he became frightened once again. Sela grabbed the money and was very happy, and sincerely thanked the Duke. I'm in your debt again, Sela. I'm sorry, Maria said when it was time to say goodbye, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. Then Maria suddenly said that she wanted to give her a modest gift. A blue diamond sparkled in her hands, and Maria also wanted to contribute to her dream. Looking at the way the light reflected on the gemstone, Sela remarked that it looked like a wedding gift. Was Maria sure she could give it away? Sela herself was torn between whether to accept or not, because besides a house by the sea, her dream was also to have her own sailboat. Then I will take advantage of it with gratitude, she said, deciding to consider it a bonus for good work. Maria smiled happily and asked the girl to use the stone to make her dream come true. It felt like they had become closer to each other. The huge ship rocked in the darkness on the sea waves. Only a weak lantern pierced the night darkness. The Admiral carefully studied the documents provided to him. Sela Cardi, a woman who, like him, can use magic. She loves the sea, has good judgment and courage, but who is she? Suddenly the man felt a sharp pain, and then red drops fell on the papers, and Elaine realized that his nose was bleeding. He also realized that it was another attack of severe headache, and he barely had time to notice how the room he was in became distorted. There was a loud crash, causing soldiers to look into the room and see their commander lying unconscious on the floor. Take the Admiral to the infirmary. Quickly, the soldiers were frightened. The next morning, the assistant came with a report directly to the Admiral's private quarters. Mr. Admiral, you're not feeling well, so is it really necessary to listen to the report right now? Russell was perplexed, adjusting his glasses. But Elaine asked him not to argue. He would rest a little and everything would pass. The assistant insisted that the Admiral had not been on vacation for a long time, and if things continued like this, it was unknown what would happen. Don't make me repeat the same thing, Elaine replied in a metallic tone, holding his head. Russell had no choice but to continue. Sela's family had lost their fortune due to her grandfather's addiction to gambling and his criminal activities. 20 years ago, they lost the title of Earl of Cardi. Elaine listened attentively to how Sela was left an orphan early on and was raised by an evil uncle. Not only did the uncle appropriate the entire remaining family inheritance, he also illegally enriched himself at the expense of Sela's funds. He himself lives in a prosperous area with good security, while the girl huddles in the attic of a poor shack near the port. It is necessary to transfer her to a safer place, providing her with good living conditions. Then we will accept her into service, the Admiral gave instructions. But Russell was very interested in one question, and he asked permission to ask it. Why did you decide to take Sela into your service? It's not like you. Maybe because she, like you, uses magic. His question was right on target. Averting his gaze slightly, Elim replied that it was true that in the current situation, when there were so few mages left, publicizing their abilities could harm them. The powers that be will try to take away the magic or kill them, so the Admiral cannot ignore this. And the job offer is just an excuse to keep Sela close, to look after her and protect her. The assistant understood everything, but there was one more piece of news he had to report. The girl Sela saved turned out to be Duke Herbert's fiancée, and as a reward for saving the bride, he generously rewarded the savior, and if they had known about this earlier, it could have helped solve their headache with the Duke's maritime territories. Selkardi will have to pay for this loss herself. Find her and bring her to me, the Admiral ordered. The suitcase, filled to the brim, fell to the floor with a loud thud. All things are packed, now we can hit the road. She went down without regret. There was literally nothing to breathe in this house, but first she had to pay off the rent. Hey, you bitch, where are you going? Sela winced from the rude shout. The disgusting landlord, with a bottle in his hands and a slurred tongue, accused her of running away without paying the rent. She owed money for a week, a poor orphan. The drunkard walked towards her. Sela was starting to get irritated. This crazy, dirty guy always bullied her like that. Hey, little orphan, what are you staring at? Do you want to die? The man shouted and swung the bottle. The girl barely had time to duck when the glass bottle shattered into pieces at her side. The drunkard didn't calm down and continued to yell rudely, asking where the orphan got such rich clothes. Maybe she found herself a rich idiot. Sela froze. Just think. Because of the pitiful rent she almost suffered, and wondered if all the problems were in this poor area or in this bastard. But whatever it was, she had enough. She wouldn't do it anymore. Suddenly, the seemingly weak girl's aura changed. She swung, her eyes flashing unkindly, and the next moment, a small, but by no means weak, woman's leg met his stomach, and the drunkard bent in half, flying back. Here, take the rent. How much is left from the deposit? Asked Sela. The man was silent, and then the girl picked up the kettle that had fallen on the floor. How much is left of the deposit? I asked. She poured water from the kettle directly onto the owner's bald head. He didn't immediately, but he still managed to say 10 pounds. The whole action took place in front of the other tenants of this house, and Sela, meanwhile, remembered that the rent was 30 pounds. Here, take it for the rent. I'll deduct 10 pounds from the deposit for a week. She threw the money to the owner. Looming over the sprawled drunkard, the girl clarified that there were no more money issues between them. Bye, bald. Probably because of such a disgusting life your hair fell out, she asked as she said goodbye, feeling a little better. The girl left, leaving behind a shocked owner and tenants laughing at him. Well, now it's time for her to go to the hotel to leave for Multana tomorrow. But as she walked down the quiet street, Sela stopped when she saw something that caught her interest. In the shop window she saw a siren, a beautiful creature with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a fish. Sela loved sirens and laughed joyfully when she saw her image. Lady, the store is closed, a quiet voice said, and the girl reassured him that she was just looking. The woman then apologized and continued on her way, but suddenly stumbled. She was carrying a box full of glass bottles in her hands, and they began to fly apart dangerously. The girl didn't lose her composure and managed to hold on to the falling woman and at the same time catch one of the bottles. The woman sincerely thanked her for her help, and Sela returned the bottle to her. Lady, do you like sirens? I saw you admiring them through the glass, the woman asked, and Sela confirmed with a smile. Old sailors believe that the day they saw a siren was a lucky day. They say that the sirens have long disappeared, but Sela would like to believe that they still live somewhere in the depths of the ocean. Lady, I will give you this. If you wear the siren symbol, then, like in the old days, good luck will come, the woman said, handing her the chain. The girl was surprised and doubted whether she could really take it, and the woman smiled and asked her to consider it as gratitude for her help. Sela sincerely thanked her for such a gift, and they said goodbye to the woman sweetly. The next day, a heavy downpour broke out outside. Looking outside, Sela didn't believe that luck would really come with such weather. It was unlikely that even a passenger ship would be sent out. It seems that, on the contrary, bad luck is pursuing her, and today she will not sail anywhere. Sela was upset. She didn't think the weather could interfere so much, but nothing could be done, and to lift her spirits, the girl decided to go eat at an expensive restaurant. The restaurant was huge and had a lot of customers. Sela was also surprised by the number of people, but decided that it was because they could see a famous opera singer perform there. Looking around, she noticed that everyone was sitting in couples or with lovers. Rich people were weaving intrigues right at dinner parties. But what does it matter to her? She will have a great time on her own. Then the singer came onto the stage and her beautiful voice was heard. The performance began. Sela listened to her performance with delight and was glad that she had not sailed to Multana today. The beautiful song flowed like the music of the sirens she loved so much. "Are we really living in the same hotel?" a male voice was heard from behind. Sela didn't immediately realize that they were talking to her, but she thought the voice was beautiful. "Can I sit here?" asked the handsome young man, pointing to the next seat. The girl froze in place, not expecting anyone to pay attention to her or even want to sit next to her. The young man was very handsome, but Sela did not recognize him and was surprised how he knew her. After some time, the girl was silently perplexed. At first he asked to join, and now he was sitting without a single word. By the way, his face and voice seemed very familiar to her. If Sela saw such a face, she would definitely not be able to forget it. He is even more handsome than most of the celebrities from her past life. "Have we met before, by any chance?" the girl asked, to which the stranger replied that this was the third time. He added that the first time he was on a lifeboat, the second time the hospital, and Sela immediately recalled the words of the sailor in glasses about the Admiral personally visiting the hospital for the first time. So it turns out that this guy is the main antagonist, Elaine, from the novel. Meanwhile, the man said that he had gone into Duke Herbert's mansion and asked if Sela and his fiancée had conspired to deceive him. The girl jumped in surprise. He found out everything about Maria, and she darkened when the Admiral said that because of her actions, he suffered huge losses. But if she had not hidden Maria's identity, Elaine, as in the novel, would have taken her hostage to blackmail Duke Herbert and gain an advantage in the naval dispute. Now the situation has changed a little and he calls it a loss. Like a real villain, with his character, he will definitely not leave her alone. And while the girl was wondering what to do, the Admiral himself continued the conversation. "Maybe I can forgive this," he said mysteriously. He was going to offer her a deal, which scared Sela even more. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. But if she doesn't listen to his proposal, he will continue to pursue and pester her, then all plans for a happy life at sea will go to waste. So Sela decided to listen to his proposal first and then think about what to do, because simply avoiding the problem is not a solution. "What do you want to offer me?" The girl sat down in her seat while Elaine was ordering from the waiter. "I want to hire you. You will work next to me, and the damage you caused me will be considered compensated," he replied. Sela, although she expected this, was still unpleasantly surprised he really wanted to hire her. But if she accepts the offer, she will have to serve on a warship or go to the duchy, then she will not be able to live at sea. The girl asked why he was so insistent on hiring her, but Elaine said that he could not answer this here, since those around him had already noticed his presence. Then Sela asked what it meant to work nearby, to which he replied that she would have to be literally in his field of vision, but could do whatever she wanted. "And what if I want to become a sea parasite?" asked Sela. Elaine did not understand what this meant, and the girl explained that he was a carefree person who did not work, but only eats and plays. "My dream is to live a carefree life on the coast, to lie on the seashore like a seal and drum on my belly. I will regularly receive a weekly salary. Will that suit you?" she asked cheerfully. And she looked at the Admiral in anticipation, wondering what he would do in such a case. "So be it," the man answered unexpectedly after a short thought. Sela was taken aback, but also noticed that he looked unwell, as if he was ill, and wondered if he even understood what he was saying. "It will be interesting. This is the first time I've hired a seal," Elaine answered in the same tone as the girl, and she was indignant that she was a freeloader and not a seal. The battle of wits continued, and they would never finish this conversation. She was fed up with this and wanted to hear the details, so she moved closer to him and asked him to tell her why he wanted to hire her. Elaine didn't expect this from the girl. Besides, she was too close to him. "With you, the pain becomes less, and you seem to smell like lemon." The man was embarrassed and told the truth. Sela didn't understand his words and thought that she smelled of alcohol, which is why she began to sniff herself intensely. The awkward situation was interrupted by the waitress who brought the girl a cheesecake, and Sela beamed with joy. Elaine asked her if she liked cheesecake and added that if she was hired, she would have to provide an unlimited supply of cheesecakes, which made her think he was quite strange. The waitress returned to the kitchen and excitedly told her colleague that the Admiral was so handsome, and they were also interested in who the girl next to him was. Another girl expressed a desire to go to their table next time, despite the fact that she was responsible for another table, and the girls had a slight argument, each wanting to be closer to the handsome Admiral, while outside the window a heavy downpour continued, illuminated by flashes of lightning and the rumble of thunder. Sela started on her dessert, and her interlocutor returned to their interrupted conversation. "The salary is 4 times higher. I will provide housing in a safe area. I want to hire you under these conditions. Are there any other wishes? He asked. But all she wanted was freedom. He offered such good conditions, but from her experience, Sela understood that nothing in this world is free. The easy, comfortable, and highly paid job is either illegal or a scam, and the reason he wants to hire her is most likely related to magic. In the worst case, he could use her as a guinea pig for magical research, but it would be better for her to refuse the offer and just run away. I'll tell you straight, I don't want to work for you at all, the girl said, finishing her dessert. The Admiral didn't understand whether the conditions were good or whether she had a reason to refuse his offer, but Sela replied that she was more comfortable alone and didn't want to work for any organization. Then the Admiral offered to hire her personally, to which the girl noted that he was a famous person, and there were always a lot of people around him, so she refused this offer. Elaim tried to convince the girl, but the words stuck in his throat as he again felt a sharp attack of headache. And then there was a terribly loud sound that scared Sela out of her wits. Other restaurant patrons also heard the sound, but the girl realized that it was not coming from inside the banquet hall. Damn it! The Admiral twisted in pain, and the girl rushed to him, asking if everything was okay. But Elaim had already realized that it was the sound of a gas explosion and told the girl about it. The gas installation is easily damaged by even a small impact. It looks like it was caused by the storm outside. Fire, help-piercing cries rang out in the restaurant. Panic was setting in inside the building. There were still people left in the boiler room, and due to the severe storm, it was impossible to go outside. Sela stood in horror. Screams were heard everywhere. The wall had collapsed. The gas installation had exploded. There were 4 people inside. They needed to go and rescue them immediately. The girl was about to go and help people, but she was beaten to it. I will rescue those trapped myself. Everyone quickly evacuates to the lobby. The Admiral gave orders. He didn't look very good, but he still went on a rescue mission. He should be a ruthless antagonist, so why did he rush to save everyone? By the way, now Elaim probably won't be able to pursue her. The gas explosion in the middle of the storm will keep him busy. If she slips out of the hotel, no one will notice. The perfect moment to escape. But is it possible to simply escape into such chaos? Even if she gets to the sea and sees in the newspapers that many people died in the hotel or that Elaim was seriously injured, she will feel guilty. But she wants to live with a clear conscience, so she covered her face with a napkin, having made a decision. Sela doesn't want to leave such stains on her perfect plan, so she rushed to help Elaim before it was too late. Helping to put out the fire, the girl brought a fire hose. She asked one of the men whether all the people who were trapped had been rescued, and she was told that the Admiral had already rescued several. And she was horrified when she heard that the Admiral himself was still in the boiler room. The fire was raging. Sela was worried whether the Admiral would be able to withstand such flames, but the fire hose was not yet ready and could not help him. No, it would be strange if the main villain of the novel died in such a place, the girl worried. He must definitely be alive, she thought, and at that moment a man emerged from the smoke. It was Admiral Elaim, who was carrying a man who had been rescued from the fire. The girl rushed to him asking if he was okay, and he replied that he was okay and told him to take care of the wounded. At this point, the hose was ready and people began to extinguish the fire with water. Sela felt relieved, but the Admiral's behavior did not fit in her head. Throwing himself into a fire to save complete strangers doesn't make him look like a cold-blooded and treacherous villain, but rather like a different person. This alone won't put out the fire, the young man noted wearily. When the girl asked why, he explained that the room inside was large, and there was only one entrance, and it was difficult to extinguish the fire in the depths of the room with water poured only at the entrance. And he said that there was another way out, while simultaneously extending his hand to the girl. I hope you can help me, Admiral Elaim said. Just a minute ago, Sela was thinking about how to run away so as not to have to deal with him anymore. Elaim, the villain from the novel who tormented Maria, and the current Elaim who saves people, what is he really like? And deciding that she wanted to find out about it herself, Sela extended her hand to him. Just this once, she said, agreeing to his proposal. It was still raining outside. The stable and the boiler room are nearby. Elaim said that they would go to the boiler room through the stable, which was destroyed due to the hurricane. Suddenly they heard a sharp, multiple sound and the neighing of horses. Several frightened horses were racing straight towards Sela. The girl understood that she had to get out of the way of the frightened animals, but she froze in place from surprise, and besides, the strong wind did not allow her to move. Suddenly, someone grabbed her hand tightly and pulled her towards themselves. The horses galloped off into the distance, and Elaine breathed a sigh of relief. Disaster had almost happened. "Are you okay?" he asked, pressing the girl to his chest. Sela blushed and pulled away sharply. This was unexpected, but she still thanked him for saving her. Clutching his head, Elaine ordered them to go inside, and it didn't escape the girl's notice that his condition was getting worse, and he was about to fall. Following the Admiral, Sela soon stopped in horror. They saw that a huge tree had fallen there, causing the wall of the hotel boiler room, which was nearby, to collapse, and the impact started a fire. "Miss Sela, what you are about to see you must keep secret for the rest of your life," the Admiral said seriously, unbuttoning the sleeves of his shirt. Then he stretched out his hand and said Tusla, and an unusual ball appeared in his hand. It was a water balloon, and the longer the Admiral stood with his hand raised, the larger the balloon became. Sela watched in delight as all the rainwater in the area rushed towards Elaine. She had never seen such beautiful magic in her life. Then Elaine moved forward and the water ball rushed towards the wall. There was a deafening sound and a wave of heat washed over Sela. The wall of the stable collapsed, and now the boiler room was visible. If water were directed directly there, it would be possible to extinguish the fire. "You're fine. You're not overexerting yourself," she rushed to the Admiral, remembering that there were no characters in the novel who possessed magic. She felt awkward asking at that moment, but she still asked what kind of magic it was, to which Elaine replied that it was word magic. "You probably use it too," the Admiral said, and he pointed to the trident sign on his neck, which was exactly the same as Sela's, the same mark that appears on her neck when she uses magic. This was the first time the girl had heard about word magic, but Elaine promised to explain it to her after they put out the fire. "Penbel," said the Admiral, and the water, obeying the movement of his hands, rushed in a powerful stream towards the fire. The Admiral began to cough and streams of blood began to flow from his nose. But he did not give up, continuing to put out the fire. "Come to your senses." Sela was afraid for his condition and grabbed the Admiral from behind. But the man didn't seem to even notice her, and the bleeding still didn't stop. She thought it was simply the Admiral's sense of duty, but why would he take such a risk? He acts like he has nothing to lose. If this continues, he will throw himself off a cliff. "Enough! Leave the rest to me. I'll call people to put out the fire. Rest, Admiral," Sela shouted, trying to stop him. But she noticed a huge black hole in the man's chest, through which his magical power was leaking, which is why he was becoming weaker and weaker. And then Elaine felt the girl's touch. And then he even covered her hands with his own, instinctively not wanting to let go. Sela also felt that something had changed. A golden light was spreading around them. Her magical power flowed into Elaine's body as a soft light, allowing the Admiral to continue to extinguish the fire using word magic. The girl noticed how the magic, having escaped from the Admiral's hands, took the form of a huge whale and headed towards the fire. At that moment, the man squeezed her hand tighter on his waist, and the magic whale finally covered the fire, causing it to go out. Now we could truly breathe a sigh of relief. The fire in the boiler room was extinguished, and everyone was saved. "Are you okay?" the girl asked, supporting the tired Admiral. The man smiled and thanked her for her help, which discouraged Sela. She hadn't done anything, but the main villain thanked her. But it was time for them to go, and the girl suggested going to the hospital. Elaine told him to go to his room. They wouldn't be able to cure him in the hospital. A large bathtub filled to the brim was already waiting in the room. When Sela saw it, she was surprised to notice that it was just a bathtub. "Is there medicine here?" the girl asked, letting go of the Admiral. "And only out of the corner of my eye did I notice a large fishtail when I heard a loud splash." And to her surprise, instead of the Admiral she was accustomed to, she saw in the bathroom a naked man whose lower half was like a fish. "Admiral," she asked in surprise, and immediately realized that he was a siren. "Those beautiful fins, is he really a siren?" This wasn't in the original. They said he was a dangerous villain, but now nothing matches the plot of the novel. It seems the Admiral is recovering like a fish in water. But what should she do now? It will be awkward if he wakes up now. No matter how different Elaine was from the original description, he still used so many tricks to keep her close. And to fulfill her dream, she must push him away, the girl thought, unconsciously stroking his hair. "I'd rather run away," she asked herself out loud. The man's eyes suddenly went wide. There was a splash of water, and Elaine pulled the girl towards him. "Don't go," the naked man said quietly to her, looking deeply into her eyes. Sela blushed in surprise at the situation. But the next moment, consciousness left the Admiral again, and he began to fall back into the bath. The man completely immersed himself in the water, pulling the girl along with him by inertia. Lying like this on the handsome man's bare chest, Sela felt like her heart was about to jump out of her chest. But he holds her hand so tightly that she cannot break free, and he tries hard to calm his own heart. "Why did you tell me not to leave?" the girl asked, knowing in advance that he would not answer. And she remembered his words about how the pain subsides when she's around. Does he really come to his senses when her mana flows into him? Then too, as soon as she touched him, Elame's magic intensified. But he will interfere with her dream if she stays here. He will continue to hold her back, not allowing her to go anywhere. Having raised herself slightly in the bathroom, the girl finally made a decision. She looked into the peaceful face of a handsome man, albeit the villain of the novel. "Only this time I'll stay by your side until you recover," Sela said and relaxed. Although she would still like to get out of this awkward position. The morning began with bright sunshine and the sounds of the street. Elame opened his eyes and did not immediately understand where he was and how he got there. Fortunately, the mana that was running out was restored, but it was warm mana, unusual for him. He suddenly remembered Sela's words that she would stay by his side just this once until he recovered, and he realized that this warm mana belonged to her. While searching for the girl, the Admiral jumped up in bed and immediately heard a joyful cry. "Admiral, you've finally woken up." A joyful rustle ran towards him. His head was still splitting, but Elame was most interested in whether Miss Sela was still at the hotel. That night, Sela found Russell to tell him what had happened to the Admiral. "Mr. Officer with glasses, so you knew the Admiral's secret. He's in the bathroom, you can go to him." Sela pointed to the door. Having thanked the girl, the assistant rushed to Admiral Elame. This was her last visit. Miss Sela left. "It seems she secretly left the hotel. I was so confused that I didn't have time to stop her. I'm sorry," said the assistant to Elame. The Admiral asked how much time had passed since then, and he instantly jumped to his feet, hearing that a week had passed since he lost consciousness. Russell continued that after this they tracked Miss Sela and found out that 2 days ago she had boarded a passenger ship to Multana. They found out about this from the notebook she left in her room. There were detailed prices, geography, and value of Multana's property. She also took things from the apartment where she had lived before. It seems that Sela is going to settle in Multan, where Elama's villa is located, where he spends his holidays. What a coincidence, it's quite funny. "It seems that Miss Sela doesn't know how to run away at all," the Admiral noted, and ordered an immediate pursuit of the passenger ship to Multana. 3 days later, a large passenger ship was sailing peacefully across the sea. The girl carefully studied the newspaper in search of a place to settle. Perhaps a secluded house in the Ray Forest would be suitable, and what kind of seakeeper is this? She came across an ad. "We are looking for a successor to the Seakeeper. We will sell a secluded house to the successor at a low price," the ad said. "It seems like it is something like a gamekeeper from Hogwarts." It sounds good, but if you think that Elame will soon catch up with her again, she can't calmly choose a house. As luck would have it, she also forgot her notebook, so he probably already realized that she went to Multana. Sela had several plans in mind. Plan A was to get to Multana and lay low. Plan B, if Elame catches up with the passenger ship she's on now, is to swim away. But what if he manages to find her even when she is hiding in Multan? Then Plan B is negotiations. Elame is also in her debt, so he should agree to a dialogue. But why wasn't the ship moving? Sela suddenly realized. They announced that the passenger ship had stopped, saying that a military ship would conduct a short inspection. She heard the conversations of other passengers, and she was horrified. Why the hell they caught up with her so quickly? There was a crowd of people gathered on the deck, and Sela tried to push her way forward to see everything for herself. Having just woken up among the passengers, she saw something she didn't want to see. A true siren warship, this behemoth came so close and silently. At the very bow of the ship stood Admiral Elame himself, and to Sela's surprise, he looked completely intact. Looking at this self-confident Admiral, Sela understood 300% that she would have to act according to Plan B, and it had to be carried out immediately. We had to jump straight into the sea. Elame also has a reputation. It will be difficult for him to jump into the sea in front of such a crowd. While Sela was preparing to carry out her plan, the Admiral jumped aboard the passenger ship. Is he in his right mind to jump from such a height? The girl instantly took off her clothes, remaining in a wetsuit, and grabbed the side of the ship, thinking that she needed to get out of here quickly. "Lady Sela, stop!" Elame shouted, realizing what she was about to do. "Well, I won't stop," the girl replied and stuck out her tongue. And then she jumped like a fish into the depths of the sea. Elame froze in his tracks, listening to the bewilderment of those around him that the girl had simply jumped into the sea. He rushed and did something that was not typical for him. From here to Multana, even by warship, it takes at least 2 hours, and who knows what dangers await her on the way without any protection. It was his fault that he had driven Lady Sella into a corner. If he had approached her gradually, without haste, she would not have committed such a reckless act, the Admiral thought as he undressed. And despite the assistant's frightened cries, he still took off his jacket and handed it to Russell. "I'm leaving this place to you," the Admiral said confidently, taking off his cap. And then he jumped overboard the ship, ignoring the cries of the assistant. Russell was only doused with seawater from a powerful splash. The Admiral ran after this woman. Could this really be a love escape? "No, we've reached a scandal," the officer was horrified. It was calm and beautiful in the depths of the sea. Now Sella is free and will simply swim to Multana, admiring her beloved sea. But the further she swam, the more she noticed that the fish were behaving strangely. Thinking that something had happened, the girl turned around, and she discovered a huge whirlpool behind her. And in the center of the whirlpool, Admiral Elaine was confidently approaching her. Damn it, how could he abandon his ship, being an admiral? The girl cursed mentally, trying to sail away as quickly as possible. "Wait," a voice said in her head, and Sella realized that Elaine had sent her a telepathic message. The Admiral said that sailing to Multana without an escort was dangerous and made a circular motion with his hand, and Sella suddenly found herself trapped in a huge bubble. She banged hard on the walls of the bubble several times in panic because she couldn't get out. "If you keep knocking like that, it could be dangerous," Elaine warned, but the girl wasn't going to give in. "Let me go. I kept your secret and looked after you when you were sick, and in return you are stalking me, scaring me, and locking me up with magic. This is your gratitude for my help." The girl was indignant. Elaine slumped and apologized. He had no excuses, but he was worried that something would happen to her. "Enough. You admit that this is a crime, an abuse of power, surveillance, kidnapping." Sella was angry, but suddenly someone floated past her. And she was surprised to discover that it was a dolphin. Moreover, a whole pod of dolphins was swimming straight towards her. "Why are the dolphins swimming here, did you call them?" she asked the Admiral, but he answered in the negative. Looking at the dolphins, Sella calmed down a little. They looked really cute. And then behind everyone, she noticed a white albino dolphin that had fallen behind everyone else. The baby was crying. The net on his tail was caught in his skin. The wound was serious. He was probably in pain. And then Sella realized with surprise that the barrier began to disappear. "This dolphin needs help before it gets further separated from the pod. You have a knife, so please," said Elaine. The girl could definitely handle this, so she asked to leave it to her. Taking out a knife, she carefully cut the nets, freeing the dolphin. Everything would be fine now, but Sella was worried that salt water would get into the wound and he might start to act up, but the dolphin, surprisingly, behaved calmly. At the same time, Elaine reached out and stroked the dolphin, and then leaned his head against its head, as if they were communicating. They say there are no bad people among those who treat animals well, but for Sella, he is a villain who is interfering with her dream. "The dolphin says thank you," the Admiral informed her. The baby himself approached Sella and buried his muzzle in her cheek, as if kissing her, which made the girl smile. It was time to release the dolphin back to the pod. Sella felt sorry, but he was an albino, and without the pod, it would be even more dangerous for him. "Swim more carefully, okay?" the girl asked the little boy, and he nodded in agreement. Watching the animal swim away, Sella felt a slight sadness. She was pleased to meet him. The girl was left alone with Elaine, not counting the fish swimming past. "Lady Sella, will you give me a chance to correct my mistake?" the man asked after a short silence. If he still pursues her, then Sella still has Plan C, to negotiate. Besides, the situation is in her favor now. "Admiral, you owe me 2 debts: the debt for catching me and causing me trouble, which I forgive. In exchange, let the damage done to the siren race because of me be considered non-existent. The remaining debt is that she wants to buy a secluded house in Multan, and he should help her with this." Elaine recalled how she said that her dream was to live in the sea as a bum. It turns out that she chose Multana because of the clean sea and the opportunity to see many marine inhabitants, the girl confirmed, later noticing a beautiful fish. "Okay, I accept your offer," said Elaine. But Sella couldn't take his word for it, in case it was a lie, so she wanted to draw up a contract first, and Elaine realized that he first needed to win her trust. He raised his hand, in which a bright yellow ball lit up. "I use oath spell magic. It is an ancient magic that is used under the siren for important oaths," the man said. "I, Elaine Siren, swear on the chains of the spell, I will repay my debt to Sella Cardi." As he spoke, golden chains were wrapped around his body. Touching his chest with his hand, he added that if he broke this oath, the chains of the spell would stop his heart. At the last words, Elaim felt a slight pain in his heart, shrouded in oath chains. Sela was afraid of what he had just done to his heart, but the Admiral asked if she believed him now. No. Why is he doing this? Is it really necessary to go to such extremes? The girl was frightened. Doesn't he have a golden mean? What kind of person is he? An hour later, the Admiral and Sela returned to the warship. The girl sat opposite the man, with papers lying on the table in front of them. Before signing the contract, Elaim asked the girl where in Multan she was going to live. "Are you asking this question to spy on me?" the girl asked incredulously. But the Admiral noticed that she knew his secret and could use magic. If this became known to the world, not only the Sirens, but she too would be in danger. "I want you to become part of the Sirens so that I can protect you," the man said. He promised to fulfill his oath and help her realize her dream. She would be able to live freely in any region of Multana, and she would not have to work for the Sirens. She just had to be nearby. Sela thought, "It sounds like a dream job, getting paid for doing nothing, but there must be a condition." "Will you assign me a supervisor?" she asked, and Elaim immediately replied that he planned to do so. "I will never tell anyone about magic or who the Admiral is, so please, we can do without a supervisor," the girl asked confidently, believing that such things should be clarified in advance. How can I believe your words?" the Admiral said thoughtfully, and Sela flinched, remembering that she had told him exactly the same thing herself. "Even if I want to believe you, life is a long time. After decades, you can forget about your promise and make a mistake. As an Admiral, I have to think about the future," the man continued seriously. Sela realized that it was not because he couldn't trust her, but because the Sirens had many enemies and he was just being cautious. But she didn't want to live under surveillance, so what should she do? Then it dawned on the girl that there was a way that would suit them both. "I use the magic of the oath spell," Selacardi said confidently. He did cast a spell on his own heart to make her trust him, although this is an extreme, but now this damned spell is needed. She also knows how to do magic a little, so it is quite possible. Having decided so, the girl immediately began casting the spell, trying to remember everything that Elaim had done before. "I, Selacardi, swear by the chains of the spell that I will keep the secrets of the Sirens all my life, and if I break the oath, the chains of the spell will stop my heart," the girl said, feeling. Elaim suddenly jumped up with a cry as she did it. But Sela asked in surprise if it hadn't worked. Isn't it really enough to just imitate a spell? Well, trying to replicate a dish from a famous restaurant without the right recipe is certainly doomed to failure. But what if we take a closer look at this recipe in that very restaurant? "Could you teach me this magic even if it is dangerous?" Sela asked. But Elaim held her gaze and replied that this magic could kill her with the slightest mistake. It was too risky for her. Then the girl insisted that he had used her, to which the man retorted that he was not human. If Sela could stop her heart with the oath spell before she gave up the secret, then there would be no need for an overseer, and the Admiral would be at peace. "But if there is a more reliable way than this, then she is ready to follow it," the girl said, knowing that such a thing does not exist. The Admiral had to agree, but he warned that mastering the magic of the oath spell would take about a year, but at least 6 months. The girl was mentally indignant. It was taking too long, but giving up here meant losing. "Just 6 months, nothing," she answered the Admiral with feigned calm. It's good that she didn't have to go to a magic school. Then Elaim reminded her that she was a human, not a siren, and the chance of success was only about 10%, but the girl showed optimism about this, noting that it was better than 0. "Even if you fail to master magic, I will be there to protect you and keep you safe from danger," the man exhaled, realizing that she could not be dissuaded, and at the same time rejoicing about it. But Sela asked that if she did manage to master magic, he add a clause to the contract that he would not spy on her. At this point, the Admiral and the former waitress agreed. Having laid out a map in front of the girl, Elaim said that it would be better to study magic after she bought a house, and asked if she had found a place for herself. Sela had several options, but first she wants to visit the Forest of Leia. They say that the Guardian of the Sea is looking for a successor, and that he will sell the house to the successor at a cheap price. Hearing about the Guardian of the Sea, Elaim was surprised, and the girl took his reaction as a sign that there were some problems there. The man mysteriously repeated what she said, thinking at the time that she really had no talent for escaping. "If you want to go there, I can take you on a warship," Captain Elaim grinned. Soon the warship arrived at the shores of Multana. Multana, I'm here, Sella shouted with delight, standing on the ship. The sea is even bluer than the sky, the sun is blinding, and the white sandy beaches. And also crystal clear water through which everything can be seen. And even rare marine animals that are not so easy to meet. Look, these seem to be the same dolphins that I saved, the girl shouted with delight. And she waved cheerfully to the dolphins as the Admiral carefully approached her. You like Multana so much, Elaine couldn't help but smile. Sella looked thoughtfully ahead at her future home. Multana is the place she had dreamed about for so long and so deeply. Suddenly the girl began to shake, as if holding back a scream that was bursting out. Now I can live here, she screamed, spreading her arms out to the sides, happiness filling her. Elaine would pay for the house, and the compensation from Duke Herbert would be enough to live on, and she would be able to live on unearned income for the rest of her life, just like a millionaire. And then Sella saw a house nearby, almost on the seashore, and froze. Could this really be the place that will soon become her home? Who is this guardian of the sea anyway, she wondered. The house was several times larger than she imagined. In addition, in front of him stretches a well-kept emerald sea and land where one can plant a vegetable garden. There is even a private pier. The house is, of course, a bit big, but she definitely likes everything. There are even dolphin neighbors here. She definitely wants to live here. But what is that small building next to her house, the girl asked. And while Sella looked thoughtfully at the shore, Russell whispered to the Admiral that she thought the villa was her home. Elaine laughed. Miss Sella might have meant another house, he thought it was funny. What does this mean? The girl was taken aback. Could it be that this beautiful house is not hers, but belongs to the Admiral? And the assistant's words that this was not a house, but an Admiral's villa finished her off. Why does this handsome man always get in her way one way or another? Admiral, this is really your villa, you're joking. Sella was in denial. But the man decided to tell the truth, and with a malicious smile worthy of a true villain, he said that the huge mansion was indeed his villa. All her dreams of a picturesque beach, emerald sea, and cute dolphins were shattered overnight. Then she asked what the small house nearby was, and received the answer that it was the house of the seakeeper to whom she was heading. If you think about it, this house is the perfect size for one person, and if you furnish it in a Mediterranean style, it could turn out quite well. Okay, calm down. This is the house she will be living in, so she needs to decide carefully. Sella patted herself on the cheeks. She then turned around, showing the red handprints on her cheeks, and asked what exactly the seakeeper did, to which she was told that he monitored the quality of the water and the marine ecosystem in front of the villa. It seems like this job is a perfect fit for her. She also studied oceanography in her previous life, so she believes she can handle it. So when the Admiral asked if she would like to come in and see the inside of the hut when they docked, the girl enthusiastically agreed. 30 minutes later, Sella was already looking around her future house. My God, what can I do? The inside of the hut is also beautiful, and the study is full of books about the sea. It's like a treasure trove. She simply must become the next seakeeper, and she will also be able to gain even more knowledge about sea creatures. And even if she had to become Elaine's neighbor anyway, he said that he stayed here once every 3 years, so it was probably bearable if he only saw her occasionally. Admiral, I really liked both the caretaker's job and the house. When will I be able to meet the caretaker? Sella asked. As she said all this, the girl glowed so brightly that Elam even had to close his eyes. Looking at her rather happy face, he couldn't believe that she was really that happy about it. And then he replied that she would see the caretaker tomorrow. The girl laughed cheerfully. She was looking forward to this so much. She would definitely become the caretaker of the sea. Wait for me, my hut, my house by the sea that I dreamed about, the girl shouted mentally. Why did she approach the Admiral and ask if she could spend the night at his villa, to which the man agreed? A little later, Elaine was looking through documents in his office. About Miss Sella, is she really going to become a seakeeper? He asked. The girl almost always looked very happy. But in front of him, she always had a wary, tense face, and this time he saw such a carefree expression on her face for the first time. Russell replied that if she didn't like it, she would have run away from here a long time ago, just like when she jumped from the passenger ship trying to escape. Elaine objected that he hadn't said he didn't like it, but the assistant reminded him that he had shown with his whole appearance how unpleasant it was for him every time they met. She ran away as if from some villain. Miss Sella is a real treasure, Russell said suddenly. When the Admiral asked why this had happened, he explained that she had, in one fell swoop, rid him of a headache that no one else could cope with. And while Elaine was saying that it was a rare occurrence for an assistant to praise someone, a deafening cry was heard outside the window seat. Hello. Overwhelmed with happiness, Sella ran in front of the villa and screamed. The men looked at this unusual scene in surprise. Russell suddenly said that he would regard Mrs. Sella as an otter, a bringer of good luck, who had appeared at the villa. Elaine thought that as long as this girl was here, he definitely wouldn't be bored. This girl brought a grain of joy into his rather boring life. It was incredibly beautiful in the depths of the sea. Using her oxygen bladder, Sella dived down to take a look around. And the view that opened up was beautiful in her past life. It would have been difficult to see something like this because of environmental pollution. She couldn't believe that the place she had dreamed of so much was really in Multana. Her heart was already fluttering with thoughts of what she would do. He wants to decorate the hut in a Mediterranean style, and if it comes down to it, he needs to splurge and buy some beautiful furniture. It's interesting how different the underwater world is from what it was in her past life. She is so happy to see this beautiful sea every day. But then something unusual caught the girl's attention. In this beautiful sea, she saw dead corals. In other places, everything is fine. But here it is like this. These corals were covered with algae. Maybe it is some kind of epidemic or there is a different reason. But it is still a big problem. We need to meet with the seakeeper, ask him and figure out what to do. We can't leave this beautiful sea in this state. And Sella decided to first return to land, for which she suddenly emerged from the depths. On the seashore, she saw a frightened maid. The girl looked at her as if she were a water spirit. "The Admiral invites you to dinner," the maid said without looking at Sella. This was just in time, and having announced that she was already on her way, the girl went to change. The dining table was laden with a variety of food. The Admiral asked her if she liked the food, and the girl responded with delight that everything was very tasty, especially the seafood was amazing. Then Elaine announced that the seakeeper would arrive tomorrow morning, and Sella wanted to prepare to meet him. "The seakeeper is the keeper of the coastal waters at the villa whom I hired. I set the condition that if he decides to leave the job, he must definitely hand over the hut to his successor," the Admiral said. He also promised to recommend Sella to the sea warden as his successor, and with his recommendation he would take a positive attitude towards it. Sella realized that the caretaker was also hired by Elaine, but since she had already decided to become part of the Sirens, it was okay. She would receive Elaine's recommendation thanks to her efforts. "Then can I ask you to be sure to write in your recommendation that I really love the sea and that I saved fishermen from a sinking ship?" The girl smiled dazzlingly. As she spoke, the girl was so beautiful that Elem could not take his eyes off her. Noticing his intense gaze, Sella thought she had something on her face, but the man turned away, embarrassed. He promised to hand over the letters of recommendation tomorrow, and the girl asked him to take care of it. "Do you need anything else while you're here?" asked the villa owner. And since he asked, Sella actually wanted to ask for something. "Could you give me some parchment and a fountain pen? I need them for one important matter. In order to become a seakeeper, it is necessary," she explained with a mysterious smile. A simple cart, drawn by 2 horses, moved slowly along the road. Seakeeper Johnny Bill Siren was worried that no suitable successor had been found to take care of the Admiral's coastal waters. "Father, don't do this. Give this job to me. I'm certainly better than some crook," Johnny's son Wayne intervened. But Johnny didn't think so. What could a man know who found it a burden even to hear about this job, who was even fired because of gambling? And when his son assured him that he would not gamble anymore after losing the house, Johnny became completely angry. There was no point in being proud of losing the house that his father bought him, and how much longer was he going to sit on their necks? Wayne tried to convince his father that this time everything would be different, but suddenly he faltered. Johnny was angry with his son and did not immediately respond when he tried to draw his attention to something else. "Father, there is something in the water. It looks like a person." He pointed to the body swaying on the surface of the water. Johnny jumped up. The man had drowned. It looked like a ship had sunk somewhere nearby and they needed to get the body out. Johnny's son was reluctant to deal with the drowned man, but Johnny ordered him to get a net from the shed, as the body of a drowned man needed to be handled with care. Handing over the body to the family of the deceased is also part of the seakeeper's job. At that moment, the drowned man raised his head from the water and took a deep breath. "Hello," Sella smiled charmingly, seeing people on the shore. The men stared at her in surprise. It was the first time they had seen a woman swimming in the sea early in the morning. But she had such a radiant face, you could tell that she truly loved the sea. "Hero of the fishermen, we are leaving." The sailors said goodbye to Sella. Johnny heard this fragile girl called a hero and was very surprised. "This is our crazy sea treasure," explained Russell, who had come up. He also suggested that the caretaker take a look at the letter of recommendation from the Admiral, and he would definitely understand everything. The Admiral himself gave a letter of recommendation. Johnny couldn't believe his eyes. And to whom, this sweet shining girl? Elaine, to whom Sella waved, smiled slightly. The serious military leader looked tenderly at the sea and the girl splashing in the water, and smiled faintly. A little later at the seakeeper's house. "I am Sella Cardi, please love and favor me," the girl introduced herself officially. "Father, are you really going to make this woman your successor? The work is hard, a woman can't handle it." The fop, unknown to the girl, was indignant. He wanted to shout something else, but the caretaker threw him out. All Wayne could do in this situation was to obey and just look angrily at the girl. He slammed the door and left, causing his father only a fit of discontent and shame for his behavior. "You should have kicked him out a long time ago. I apologize for my wayward son," the man said to the girl. And then he introduced himself, saying that she could just call him Johnny. "I have a lot to learn from you, so I will call you Teacher Joe." Sella smiled. Johnny asked if she knew what a seakeeper's job was, and the girl cheerfully reported that it was to preserve and research the ecosystem of the coastal waters near the villa. And it seemed like the time had come to use the method she had learned at university. Sella's plan to win over the seakeeper, step 1, was to praise his achievements, for which the girl said that she had seen many different books in his library and was delighted with how much work he had put into researching the sea. "I haven't done any research recently, so this is pretty old data. You're the first one to show such interest in it." The caretaker was embarrassed and asked how she was enjoying the library. "It's full of hard-to-understand marine knowledge, like a treasure trove, and it's data collected personally, so it's very accurate and its scientific value is great," Sella said. "After all, step 2 is to show curiosity." And the girl did it very sincerely and from the bottom of her heart. And now it's time for the trump card. The girl handed him the sheets of paper and asked him to look at them. It was a research report, and Johnny looked at the papers with interest. The third step was to demonstrate enthusiasm, so Sella began to explain that she had used his marine habitat map from 3 years ago as a basis and checked what changes had occurred this year. "So, the reason you were at sea?" Johnny asked, and the girl finished by saying that she went out early in the morning, finished the research, and wrote a report. And then she still had some time left, so she rested a little. According to the report, the habitat of some creatures had changed, and Joni praised the report, asking where she learned to write so well. Sella replied sheepishly that it was the result of hard reading. She couldn't say that she had learned it at university. Johnny noted with nostalgia that he too didn't have the opportunity to enter the academy, so he learned everything on his own. It was difficult, but interesting. "I heard that you also used to work on a passenger ship," the caretaker continued the conversation. Like him, she worked and studied hard both before and after her reincarnation, and her life was always connected to the sea. "When there were no clients, I read books right at work. Sometimes I was so engrossed that I didn't even notice how they arrived," the girl answered him with a smile. The caretaker told how one day, while lost in thought about a book, he broke a barrel of rum that he was carrying. Of course, he did not receive payment for that day. The conversation flowed so smoothly that Sella was pleased. And then the caretaker pointed to her letter of recommendation. It says that she jumped into the water to save a drowning woman and also rescued a fisherman from a sunken ship. "You are a very brave young lady. We have an outstanding person coming to us," said Johnny with a smile. And Sella was already glad that she had made a wonderful impression on the caretaker. But he said that if it were up to him, he would want her to be his successor, but asked about a week's trial period, to the girl's horror. "You'll be able to take your time getting used to the job and consider whether it's right for you, because if you become a seafarer, it won't be easy to leave that position," said Joni. The girl thought that she would be hired today, but his caution is understandable. He must be worried that if he chooses the wrong successor, the entire sea, which he is so worried about, will fall into decay. If you think about it as an internship, it was quite bearable, so Sella confidently stated that she agreed. They agreed to sign a contract after a trial period, and the man asked if she had any questions, to which the girl asked permission to use the materials in his office, to which she received consent. And then Sella remembered another important issue she wanted to discuss with him. The girl remembered the dead corals she had seen in the depths. She told Johnny about it, but to explain, he suggested changing the location of the conversation. "Not long ago, a terrible thing happened in this beautiful sea. Typically, wastewater is collected and sent to treatment facilities outside the forest, but the villa's manager, E, dumped it directly into the sea to save on treatment costs. Luckily, he's in jail now, but it turns out he stole more than just the waste disposal money, something Johnny didn't know. The main problem is that the wastewater is no longer being discharged, but the coral colony continues to die, and the caretaker cannot understand why. The Admiral knows this too, but it's Johnny's job to prevent situations like this, and he failed, yet he wasn't fired. Now Johnny wants to repay the kindness by restoring the coral colony. It's good that it's not a disease, Sela thought. Treating sick corals is incredibly difficult, but if the cause is sewage, then there is still a way to save the remaining corals. "Sir, could you entrust this matter to me?" the girl asked. She promised to definitely solve this problem and asked to rely on her. The sun shone brightly over Multana, where work was in full swing. Sela looked thoughtfully at the stone, half hidden in the water. There were plants on it that looked like algae. And the girl asked Joni what they were called, but the man suddenly flinched at her question. Turning away from Sela, he said that these algae were called Johnny's hair, and the others, which the girl pointed out, were Johnny's eyebrows, surprising her with their strange names. "These algae are a headache. They weren't even given names. I was the first one to come up with names for them," the man explained, embarrassed. Trying to change the subject, he asked why she had suddenly become interested in algae, and Sela, with a victorious smile, replied that she had found out why corals were dying. The reason is eutrophication and algae proliferation. Eutrophication is an excess of nutrients, and domestic wastewater was dumped here, which is like fertilizer for farmers, waste for us, and essential nutrients for algae. But the algae thrive on nutrients, so why are the corals dying? The caretaker asked. And the girl explained that corals and algae receive energy from the sun, release oxygen, and live that way. Corals are living creatures that are sensitive to the oxygen content in the water. The algae spread, and there was too much oxygen, and this poisoned the corals. To save the corals, all of Johnny's eyebrows had to be removed, the caretaker realized. And Sela confirmed that when oxygen levels stabilize, the corals will be able to grow normally. When the man asked her where she had acquired such knowledge, the girl modestly replied that while she was working as a maid, she had picked up a little bit from everywhere. "And I think I've figured out what to do with the seaweed," Sela noted cheerfully, and blushing, she dreamily offered to eat them. Johnny was taken aback by this proposal and could not come to his senses for a long time. "Father, is it true that you are going to take her as your successor?" cried Johnny's son. The caretaker replied that this was indeed the case, and that they would sign an official contract in a week. The young man heard that she saved a lot of people, but how could a maid do such a thing? It's all a lie. And although Johnny replied that the Admiral was aware, his son did not calm down. How could she, with such outstanding physical abilities, want to be just a guardian of the sea? It would be better to use her abilities to earn more money. Besides, there are suspicious rumors going around. They say that she is a spy sent by another clan, blurted out Johnny's son. The Admiral allegedly rented a room for her in his residence and even dined with her. She probably charmed him with her beauty in order to find out her weak spots. And Johnny wondered if the Admiral had dined with this girl, the same Admiral who always ate alone. No, this can't be. But then the man's thoughts were interrupted by a joyful female scream. "Mr. Johnny, I got this many eyebrows of Johnny." Sela beamed with happiness. Now she can cook a lot of dishes, and she invited her son Johnny to try them, but he did not share her enthusiasm. Observing his son's interaction with Sela, the caretaker thought that someone had definitely spread false rumors, and that the girl was simply an eccentric. Until the end of the day, Sela worked in the caretaker's house. The seaweed tasted like kelp, even the most expensive variety. Johnny was nearby and worried that she would be poisoned, but he refused to try it himself. The girl realized that in her past life, seaweed was a delicacy only in Korea and East Asia, but how she wanted to treat everyone to delicious seaweed. What if you dry it and make seasoned seaweed? The fishy taste will be less, it will be easier to eat, and it will last longer. "Mr. Joe, could you help me with some sun-drying supplies for Johnny's eyebrows?" the girl asked. The large-scale preparation for the production of traditional seaweed has begun. Step 1. Placing a clean picture frame on the drying rack. Step 2. Carefully spread the algae inside the frame in a thin layer. Step 3. Dry the seaweed for 5 hours. In a couple of hours, they will have delicious seaweed. Mr. Joe needs to be fed some delicious food, and there is one more person to whom Sela is grateful. Elam used to irritate her, but now she is not the least bit angry with him. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been able to even dream of such a thing. It seems like there will be a lot of seaweed. I need to prepare some food for Elam and thus express my gratitude. While the seaweed was drying, Sela wanted to relax in the sea, which surprised the caretaker that she was not going to relax at home. As she joyfully rushed into the water, Johnny was once again convinced that she really was an unusual girl. The pen hung in the air without writing a single word. Elaine had been sitting over a blank sheet of paper for a long time, thinking painfully. How should I tell my mother about this? He asked himself. She travels the world in search of a cure for his illness, and unfortunately, has not yet found one. Elena is tormented by a feeling of guilt for causing his mother so much suffering. He would like her to start living for herself. Elaine decided to ask her not to look for a cure anymore, because thanks to Sela, he feels much better. Of course, she won't immediately believe that his body, which had tormented him for more than 20 years, had suddenly healed, and in order to convince his mother, he would have to tell about Sela. However, if she became closely involved with the Siren clan, Sela could be in danger, so Elaine agonized over what was worth writing and what was not. Hearing the splashing of water outside the window, the man looked out and discovered that Sela had climbed into the sea again. Today is already the 4th time. It won't take long to catch a cold. Does she really like the sea so much? You look at her and feel like you can smell the fresh lemon scent. Elaine kept looking at her and looking, feeling himself sinking into a feeling of some kind of comfort, until the loud voice of his assistant pulled him out of his oblivion. Admiral, I knocked several times, but you didn't answer. What are you looking at so intently? Russell asked inquiringly. Are you looking at the seaweed that this benefactress is drying? Asked the assistant, adding that she was drying Johnny's eyebrows. They say they are going to make food out of this. It really is unpredictable. Because of this, the servants look at her unkindly, and Sela also comes and behaves a little provocatively, Russell said. It seems she is being persecuted. Inform the servants that I am her protector, the Admiral ordered. But then Elaine noticed something unusual on the street. There was some strange guy hanging around the caretaker's hut. The Admiral was ready to go and sort things out right away, but his assistant asked him to wait. After all, this was the son of the Keeper of the Sea, but why he was still here was unclear. This is definitely not a good sign and is very suspicious. It's suspicious that he would dare to do something with the Admiral's benefactress. The Admiral had a bad feeling about this, so he ordered his assistant to assign people to him. The dried seaweed was pressed into a sheet and lightly fried in a frying pan. The dried seaweed was then generously sprinkled with salt. Taking one piece, Sela bit into it with interest. It was divine, crunchy, sweet, nutty, a real explosion of salty sweet madness. How she missed Korean food, and she wants everything so much, but here she will never taste the dishes she longs for. But now she at least has a Kim, she just made it. What a wonderful aroma! Is this what you were working on? Johnny asked, and the girl replied that this is what Kim smells like when you fry it. The man was surprised to hear the unfamiliar name, and Sela said that she was going to call him Jomikim. Jo means Johnny's eyebrows and Mai means delicious. She's also going to make kimbap with this Jomikim. The caretaker repeated the name, which was new to him, in surprise, not understanding anything at all. Help yourself. Sela put a new seaweed dish on the plate. Johnny looked warily at what she was proposing. This is what's called Hawaiian kimbap, the girl explained with a smile, advising him to grab it with his hands and enjoy. The caretaker asked in surprise if it was a jomik that was stuck there, and Sela replied that it was true. She had made it convenient for eating, and she really hoped that he would like it. Johnny carefully picked up the kimbap and took a bite just as carefully, and after a couple of moments he froze, as if struck by lightning. The most delicate omelet melting in your mouth and juicy ham explode with a firework of flavor, meat and seafood aromas intertwined in wonderful harmony, a truly delightful balance of texture, aroma, and taste. And this jomikimi doesn't taste like mud at all. It's incredibly delicious. I didn't know you could make such a miracle from seaweed, the man praised. This girl is definitely the best candidate for the role of the guardian of the seas. Deep knowledge of maritime affairs, diligence, love of the sea. Where else can you find such an ideal successor? Thank you for the wonderful treat. I'll wash the dishes and you can do some more, the man asked, and the girl was glad that he liked it so much. She literally beamed with happiness and hurried to prepare more, but then there was an insistent knock. What a wonderful smell. You can smell it even outside. Are you cooking something? Asked the bespectacled sailor standing outside the window. Deciding that she had a new taster, Sela smiled and, saying that she had just been about to make kimbap for the Admiral, suggested that Russell try some too. A little later, Elaine sat at the dining table with a plate of sliced kimbap in front of him. He had been smelling the delicious aroma for several hours, and now in front of him was Sella's creation, and his assistant told him that it was Hawaiian kimbap. The Admiral wasn't usually interested in cooking, and he doesn't know why he wanted to try it this time. Probably because Sella did it, he decided, putting the first piece into his mouth. The ham seems to be from the north of the kingdom. From Paikum, the eggs are omelets. As they are prepared in the south, the rice is cooked in the way of the Gobi Union, which is in the east, beyond the sea. But where does this jomakim come from? He has visited many ports but has never tried anything like it. Maybe this dish is from distant lands, but how could Sella know the recipe for overseas cuisine? The more Elaim learns about her, the more questions arise. She is not a siren, but she uses the magic of words. A mysterious girl whose magic he uses to cure his headaches. Will he ever be able to find out everything about her while they are together? But right now he is worried about another question. Why does this jomakim taste so delicious? You ate every last crumb and you have such a poor appetite, Russell noted, also chewing something. The assistant handed him a basket of jomakim, which the benefactress had given him, suggesting that he try it too. They say that if you eat this salted jomakim with dried squid and beer, it is the best snack. Elam thought she liked cheesecakes, but now he knew something new and said that since she liked to drink, he should give her whiskey. I also wanted to thank the benefactor and asked what she needed. She told me to buy her something when she needed it, Russell said. But what could Sella need? The young man wondered. Admiral, she also fried some dried squid. Perhaps you'd like to have a drink with me? Your health has been much better lately, the assistant suggested. Elaim called him a fool, to which he became indignant. But the Admiral still decided that one sip was acceptable and ordered the drink to be brought. He also ordered the maid to be called, as he needed to give something to Sella. Elaim really wanted to thank the girl for the food. At 5 o'clock in the morning, a girl in a nightgown and with a lantern in her hand was walking down the corridor. A little earlier, a maid knocked on her door with a letter from the Admiral, in which he asked her to come urgently to see if he was really going to teach her magic. The letter told me to find a painting in the hallway. Sella stood in front of the painting and began to look at it when she heard Elaim's voice. "Here!" came a voice from somewhere off to the side, and the girl turned around in surprise, looking for the source. The picture of the whale lit up brightly and moved to the side. A passage opened in front of Sella, in which steps were visible going down. As she descended, the girl wondered where she was going. The walls around her shimmered like dark water in the bright light of the moon. Suddenly, a huge stingray swam above her, and she was surprised. And then the girl seemed to fall into a bright, blinding light. Shielding her eyes from the blinding light, Sella heard the voice again. "You came, the path was difficult," asked Elaim, holding a cup in his hands. Rubbing her eyes, the girl said that she was frightened by this blinding light. And only after a couple of moments, looking around, she asked where she was. It was a spacious room filled with books and some technical equipment. "Welcome to my secret workshop," Admiral Elaim said, relaxing in his chair. Sella was surprised at what kind of secret workshop this was, and he explained that even his servants didn't know about this place. The girl was delighted. It was like in a fantasy book. It was not for nothing that she ended up in this world. It looked like everything was about to begin. Not believing her luck, Sella became increasingly convinced that right now Elaim's magic lesson would begin. Sitting down where the Admiral suggested, the girl clarified that it was an underwater cave and also asked what the offered coffee was made of. And the man confirmed her guess that the coffee was made from fantastic ingredients imbued with magic, collected in a place created by ancient sirens, one of which was located near Multana. "Will I be able to go there? I so wanted to explore the unknown seas," Sella asked with delight. Elaim promised to tell us more about that place next time. Then the girl enthusiastically praised the coffee, noting its amazing pain-relieving effect. Her muscles had been a little sore, but now she was completely fine. The Admiral was glad that the medicine worked well and offered her some cheesecake with her coffee. "There are fantastic ingredients in this cake too?" the girl asked, but the man answered negatively. But then Sella didn't understand why he gave it to her, and she also noticed a strange look, like that of an owner watching a dog eating a treat. Could this really be gratitude for the Hawaiian kimbap? The girl thought. She felt awkward. She had never been treated like that before, while Elam, noticing her intense gaze, thought that his skin was probably tanned because he had been outside all day. Before teaching Sella magic, Elaim needs to check something. "How did you first manage to use word magic?" the Admiral asked directly. She knew it was inevitable, that in order to learn magic, she would have to tell it someday anyway. In order not to arouse unnecessary suspicion in Elaim, Sela could not talk in detail about her past life and personal affairs after reincarnation, but she briefly told how, caught in a storm, she fell into the sea, met a siren shining like the sun, and awakened magic within herself. Although she still doesn't understand why she was the one who awakened magic. Maybe she was a mermaid in her previous life, or maybe this was a bonus for getting into another world, the girl thought. At the time I thought it was just a vision, but when I met you, Admiral, I realized it was a siren, the girl said. But Elaim said thoughtfully that this creature was most likely not of the siren kind. There were no sirens among them that could awaken magic. Sela asked if there were other sirens besides their kind, but Elaim answered in the negative, which makes it even harder to believe. Your magic is similar to that used by the sirens, but it is not quite the same. You are human, and the way you awakened your magic is also different, the Admiral stated. Therefore, it will be even more difficult for her to learn magic from her. But I know the best way to teach you, Elaim said, opening the glass door. It was an exit connected to the sea in front of the villa. The magic of words is more effectively studied at sea, and Sela was already in anticipation. I will try to live up to your expectations. Will you take my hand? Asked the young man, and the girl froze in surprise, looking at the outstretched hand. Just recently, she would have hesitated to take his hand, but now she doesn't feel so bad about his touch, and the girl readily placed her palm into the man's large palm. Did you like the kimbap? Sela asked, and the man replied that it was good and the seaweed dressing was delicious. Since you gave me a cure for fatigue, I will give you one-of-a-kind seasoned seaweed, the girl smiled. In the same tone, Admiral Elaim also announced with a smile that, in gratitude for the kimbap, he would safely escort her to the sea. Then Elaim, with a sharp, light movement, pulled the girl towards him. Pressed against his chest, she felt a fresh scent, similar to the smell of the sea. Hold on tight, the man said, lifting her into his arms, which made the girl feel awkward. The next moment, cold water covered them, and Sela closed her eyes in surprise. But after a moment the girl did not feel any discomfort, so she looked around in surprise. What she saw shocked her to the depths of her soul. It didn't look like the sea at all during the day. Elaim watched the girl's reaction closely. You like the sea at dawn, Lady Sela, the man smiled, and Sela was delighted that his appearance changed with the help of magic as soon as he entered the sea. The young people then moved to the training site, where the coral reefs were still heavily covered with algae. I will teach you to create a sea current using word magic, Elaim said. Stamadras, he said mentally, and a whirlwind began to swirl in his outstretched hand. Elaim explained that he wouldn't be able to create a current right away. Only after starting to study magic, she needed to start by creating a small whirlpool, and when she succeeded in that, she would be able to learn to change its direction. If you can control the whirlpool freely, you can create currents like these, Elaim explained, while the girl watched as the current sucked in the algae like a vacuum cleaner. Maybe I should try creating a whirlpool right away too, Sela asked, and the Admiral gave the go-ahead. The girl stretched out her hand, closed her eye, and mentally said, Stormadras. Then she opened her eyes in surprise. Absolutely nothing had happened. Why isn't it working? Maybe I pronounced the spell incorrectly, Sela asked, but Elaim knew that she wouldn't succeed. When studying the magic of words, the voice and imagination are important. The voice of the sirens is endowed with magical power, so they only need to pronounce a spell for everything to work out easily. But in her case, since she is not a siren, it is important to be able to clearly imagine the image. Normally it's impossible, but she's already used a little word magic, so she should be able to do it, and she even created a new spell. Then Elaim asked Sela to tell him what happened when she fell into the sea and awakened her magic, and the girl began to remember. She was suffocating and on the verge of drowning, and in order to survive, she created scuba gear and fins. The key to the magic of words is to imagine the images that are closest and most familiar to you, Elaim concluded. So here's the thing. In her past life, she was so into diving that she even got a master's certificate. So in a critical situation, naturally, she thought about this. Just like that time, she needed to imagine something familiar. A familiar tool she used to collect seaweed while diving, a tool similar to a fine mesh net. A collection net, Sela said, and golden threads began to appear in her hands. They twisted and intertwined until they took on the appearance of a net on a long handle. The girl was delighted that she had actually succeeded in using magic to create a tool for collecting seaweed. Elaim looked slightly surprised, not expecting her to succeed so quickly. I told you I understood. I'll collect more seaweed and make you some seasoned nori again today, Sela promised happily. Create another new spell. She is truly unpredictable, but it seems that Elaine will look forward to their new magic lessons, because then she will be able to see how Lady Sella smiles so joyfully. The rest of Multana slept peacefully that night, just like caretaker Joe, peacefully snoring in bed next to his wife. But there was still one person who did not sleep that night. He quietly pulled out the desk drawer and took the document lying there. Johnny's son carefully read the paper he had taken and grinned maliciously. He would soon finish off the nasty girl. Elaine spent the next early part of the day in his secret place. The beaker in his hand spread a strong smell throughout the room. It had been a long time since he had prepared this medicine, and Elaine hoped that it would help Miss Sella. It was a protective skin cream made from purified water, crushed willow bark, cranberry extract, diamond coral root, and kraken seed. The Admiral's good mood was interrupted by a sharp headache. The man grabbed his head, lamenting that this damn attack was happening again. Is the headache returning because the magical power received from Lady Sella is starting to fade? This was becoming a serious problem for Admiral Elaine. Wow, that was quite a lot. Sella looked at the dried seaweed with delight. Johnny asked the girl not to overwork herself and to take care of herself first. If she gets tired, trouble can happen at sea, so she should always take care of herself. For the sake of Johnny's beautiful eyebrows, I'll be careful, Sella announced, glad that she and the caretaker seemed to have become closer lately, and that he was so concerned about her. Look how beautiful they are, Sella pointed to the drying seaweed in response to the man's puzzled look. In her imagination, the dried seaweed was a deity, Mr. Kim, who enjoys sunbathing in order to become their daily food. To control the algae population, she will harvest 8/10 of the crop over 3 days, and from this she wants to start growing norias. Johnny was surprised only fishermen from the duchy had successfully managed to grow anything in the sea, and upon hearing this, Sella cheerfully remarked that the Admiral should be aware of this, since he was a great duke. I'm terribly interested in how they managed it, the girl insisted, but Johnny didn't know this, otherwise he would have taken up seafish farming himself. So, Noria farming, do you even know how to do it? The caretaker asked, but all Sella knew was that Noria seaweed had to be grown on nets. Make a floating net out of twine and buoys, collect Noria seaweed seeds, attach them to the net and float them on the surface of the water. Thanks to the sunlight and moisture, the Noria will grow well. Johnny was puzzled as to how she knew such things. Was she a siren? I read it in a book. The girl smiled, and Johnny noticed that he himself would like to read such a book. In any case, if a net is needed to breed a Noria, he recommends his wife. She has golden hands. Then Sella remarked that the cultivation could take a long time, and the caretaker asked if the venture was successful to share with them some of the slightly seasoned nori, delighting the girl by saying that it was very tasty. It was getting on towards evening, and Sella was still busy with the seaweed. She only had to move the last dryer when someone approached her. The girl was delighted to realize that it was the Admiral, and the man remarked that it was too much trouble. Is it hard for you, he asked, helping to move the dryer, to which Sella remarked that a person should live, doing physical work in moderation. And she laughed that how else could you survive here if you got sick? In that case, you should live closer to the hospital. Yes, you're right, Elaine answered in a changed voice, and the girl was afraid that she had said something wrong. She wanted to tell him something else, but the man interrupted her, taking a small bottle out of his pocket. It's a skin protectant, Elaine explained, handing the bottle to her. After examining the bottle, the girl noticed that she felt the Admiral's power in it, and so it was. It contained the magic of Elaine. Add 1 drop of this remedy to the incense burner for a month, and when you use it all up, your skin will be completely protected and you won't have to worry about sunlight anymore, the man said. Embarrassed, Sella thanked him for the gift. She never thought that the day would come when she would be touched by the dark villain. Elaine clenched his teeth, beads of sweat ran down his face, and another attack of severe headache hit him. The man turned sharply and hurried away. Admiral, you're not sick, the girl worried. She saw his face paler than usual, although she thought he had gotten better. Stopping, Elaine asked her not to pay attention to it. And without saying another word, he left, leaving Sella alone. The girl was very worried whether he had really overexerted himself in his sick state to do such a thing for her. And she would like to thank Elaine for this remedy. 3 days later, the new seakeeper's probationary period ended. Johnny wanted to surprise Sella at dinner by handing over the house transfer documents. He could already imagine how happy she would be. Today, the successor to the seakeeper will finally be officially appointed, and he is confident that the young lady will not give up, no matter how hard the job is. As she said, after they removed the algae, the corals stopped dying. Moreover, new ones began to grow, and someday a new colony will grow in their place. It seems he has found an excellent successor, and now he can retire peacefully. "Johnny, how long can you stand there like a pillar? Miss will be here soon. Help me set out the food," his wife Melanie snapped. And the man hastened to carry out his wife's instructions. Sela was delighted to see the table laden with a variety of dishes. "You prepared all this for me? There was no need to try so hard." The girl was embarrassed, but nevertheless began to eat with appetite. She was just getting hungry, and everything was very tasty. "My wife cooked all of this. There is no dish she couldn't make," the man boasted, and Sela noted with delight that she also wanted to learn how to cook like that. Johnny was happy to see the girl eating with such appetite. It wasn't for nothing that they had arranged all this for such a day. And then he handed the girl an envelope, asking her to accept it. This is exactly what she thought. From today, she officially becomes the caretaker of the sea, and now this house is hers. "Mr. Joe, I will be a good successor and will continue to take good care of the coastal waters." The happy girl jumped up. Johnny was counting on her. He had already completed all the complicated procedures. All she had to do was sign. Sela opened the envelope with excitement and gasped when she saw the documents inside. Seeing the girl's changed face, Johnny asked what was the matter. "Maybe signing means I have to rewrite the contract myself?" she asked hopefully. Johnny jumped up. There were no documents for the house. All the papers were blank. Sela assumed that the documents had been swapped in the office, but the man shouted that this couldn't be true. He had definitely checked the papers and then put them in a desk drawer. All this time, in the house besides him and Maloney, there was only his son. A bad revelation came over the old caretaker. "Oh, Wayne! Oh, you scoundrel!" Johnny shouted in rage, realizing that his own son had stolen the documents. "Where the hell are you dragging me? Let me go!" A cry was heard in the night. Wayne shouted that he had stolen the documents as he had promised, but they would not let him go. He wanted to leave home without his parents noticing, but these people were dragging him somewhere. They finally came to a hut and Wayne was roughly pushed inside. "I was going to assign him to spy on the Admiral, but he never managed to become the keeper of the sea." Wayne heard a voice, and one of those who brought him replied that he brought documents, but he was kicked out of the house. "You worthless piece of shit, your worthless life will end here," said the boss of the criminal organization Hook. And only now Wayne realized what he had gotten himself into. These people were trying to plant a spy in the Admiral's villa. He understood that his days were numbered and this was the end, but a loud crunch was heard right next to him. The man in glasses was crunching on some green leaf with gusto and looking attentively at those gathered. "I'm not disturbing you?" asked the Admiral's assistant with a completely innocent look. The criminals jumped in surprise at what the Admiral's assistant was doing there and what kind of delicacy he had in his hand. As Russell finished his last piece of nori, he thought that the caretaker's son fit the description perfectly. A few days ago, he read a report about it to the Admiral. Johnny's son, deeply in debt, borrowed money from Hook, the head of a criminal group. Hook was a man who dealt in human trafficking, selling debtors who couldn't pay their debts to a bunch of pirates to make money. "So it's them," Admiral Elaine stated. "The same pirate cult that worships a sea monster. They capture ships to sacrifice civilians. Taking Hook hostage will reveal the route that leads directly to the pirates. The boy's suspicious behavior in the hut is most likely due to the fact that he was being blackmailed into stealing the jewels and paying off a debt. Sometimes even blood ties can become poison when it's time for them to turn, grab it." And now, warming up, Russell said out loud that he hadn't thought that the moment mentioned by the Admiral would come so soon lately. He had been really bored, so this was to his advantage. "Don't even think about running away, you sea roaches," the military officer's eyes flashed. And then he loudly ordered his subordinates to catch these scoundrels and destroy every last one of them. Hook was taken aback, but he had nowhere to retreat, and he ordered his men to also go on the attack. Sounds of a fierce struggle could be heard, until the leader himself took the chance to escape. "Where are you going?" Russell stopped him, crunching on a snack. "Scoundrel," the villain quickly realized, taking a pistol from his bosom. But Russell, who had taken off his glasses, had already raised his fist to strike. "Who do you think you are to start a fight?" he asked the defeated bandit. There was silence in the hut, and the officer asked his boys if they were finished. "The Admiral, Lord of Multana, has the right to sentence to collective execution. If you want to live, answer honestly." The officer lifted the leader by the hair. He asked if he knew the leader of the pirate cult, but since Hook tried to evade the answer, he ordered his men to seize him. "I know. All the information is in the storage. Let me in, you fools," the bandit screamed in fear as he was led away. I was ordered to shoot you if you resist, Russell told a stunned Wayne. And he added that Hook had planned to kill him to keep him quiet, but he was still alive only thanks to the Admiral, so he shouldn't forget that. And for this you will pay with your life. You didn't think that I would be lenient towards you because of Johnny, did you? The officer's eyes flashed unkindly again. The next day, Johnny sat in the Admiral's office and listened to everything that had happened. Unable to cope even with his own son, he disappointed the Admiral. He feels like his life has no meaning now, no matter how much hatred he has for his son. If he died, then Johnny died too. I have decided to exact a price for Wayne's life, the Admiral said, and Johnny shuddered as he listened to the Admiral force his son to work without pay on a deep-sea vessel for 10 years. Only in this way will he be able to pay off all his debts, on the condition that he will never be able to set foot on Multana for the rest of his life, the Admiral said sternly, adding that he was showing him minimal politeness only because he was Johnny's son. The overseer had a hard time comprehending that the Admiral was allowing Wayne to live. He thanked him for his mercy, so that Wayne could pay for his sins. He believed that his biggest mistake was that he was unable to control his son, so he asked to be allowed to pay for his son's sins instead of his son, to be allowed to do small jobs around the villa. There is no need for that. Hand over your duties and leave this place, Elaine said in a broken voice. Seeing that the caretaker hesitated, the Admiral asked if he really doubted his decision. Johnny had to agree with some regret, as he wanted to say a proper farewell to the Admiral. When everyone turned their backs on Johnny because of his eccentricity, the Admiral was the only one who treated him with respect. He stood up silently and formally saluted the Admiral, mentally thanking him for entrusting him with the care of the sea. He would remember his kindness for the rest of his days. Mentally wishing his former employer happiness, the man headed for the door. Elema was overcome by another attack of severe headache. Before Johnny could reach the door, he heard a dull knock behind him. The Admiral lay unconscious at his desk, and the caretaker screamed, trying to bring him to his senses. Meanwhile, the girl was nervous in the guest room of the villa. She didn't understand how everything turned out this way, and hoped that Elaine would help with the documents, and everything would be all right. In the original story, he was a prominent mastermind with enormous influence in society and the underworld, which is why he had countless spies scattered around the world. Even Duke Herbert couldn't defeat him in the information war, and now he just needs to collect the necessary documents. But for some reason, everything is dragging on. Sella was nervous. Mr. Johnny was unexpectedly called to the office. She was worried if everything was okay with him. She still can't sleep, so she decided to check out the situation. To avoid attracting anyone's attention, the girl carefully peered around the corner. And I heard Joni's extremely worried voice, "The Admiral is unconscious. Call a doctor immediately." He fell for no apparent reason. "We need a doctor," the caretaker shouted. The worried maids replied that the doctor was in town, 30 minutes away, but they couldn't waste a minute. The Admiral was very ill. Sella understood that calling a doctor was useless. Then Elam said that she shouldn't worry, but it was obviously a serious illness. One day, his condition improved when her magical energy entered his body. And now Elaine needs her. The doctor won't be able to help. The girl jumped out from around the corner, frightening Joni with her words. The girl asked to first find a naval officer with glasses and tell him everything. "And rely on me," Sella said earnestly, asking to be taken to the Admiral. The Admiral ordered that no one be allowed in. "Why is she here?" "She's not herself," the maids whispered outside the Admiral's room. Sella stood at the door, preparing to enter, while the maids were indignant that she imagined herself to be someone special. "Admiral, I have come to repay my debt," said Sella. This was said quite loudly, and the maids again burst into dissatisfaction that now was not the time for this, and was she really trying to attract attention? From behind the closed door, the Admiral's voice was heard, giving her permission to enter, and the maids were all astonished by what was happening. Having apologized in advance for the intrusion, Sella abruptly opened the doors, ready to do whatever was required of her. But as soon as she crossed the threshold of the room, where shards of glass were scattered around, her ardor waned. Elaine's face was literally gone. The man could barely stand on his feet. "You've come," he said barely audibly, and the girl replied that she had come to help him. But at that moment, the Admiral began to lose consciousness and fall to the floor. Sella rushed to his aid, and only by some miracle of success did he catch the falling body so that he wouldn't get hurt. It was dangerous. It seems Elaine broke the glass when he tried to move. Looking at the pale Admiral, the girl was convinced that he was very ill. But she came to help him and will definitely help him. Placing her hand on his chest, Sella concentrated. Take as much as you need until you feel better. A light, warm magic filled the man's body. After some time, the girl opened her eyes and thought that he was already feeling better. And so it was. The man's complexion became healthier, his breathing evened out. Thank heavens, it worked. The Admiral was now simply sleeping peacefully, but suddenly he sat up slightly, and then he buried his face in the girl's chest. Without opening his eyes, the man unconsciously hugged Sela around the waist, not wanting to let go. At this rate, her heart would soon jump out of her chest. The situation was terribly awkward and much different from the last one. In this state, he looks like a defenseless child. She even feels a little sorry for him. But she also felt like she was being hugged by a huge bear. The man was heavy. So, first of all, Sela decided to somehow put him on the sofa, and not without some effort, she managed to put the sleeping Elaim on the sofa. To ensure his full recovery, she needs to continue to infuse him with magical power. So, after apologizing, the girl focused on her actions and again placed her palm on his chest. Now was not the time for embarrassment, but she still noticed that he was well built. By concentrating, Sela could tell exactly what her magic was affecting. She felt a pull in the solar plexus area. What the hell is this black hole-like hole? After some time, it seemed to her that the absorption of energy had stopped, and the girl sighed with relief, hoping that this would be enough. So Elaim will be okay, she thought. At that very moment, the Admiral opened his eyes. You woke up? Everything is fine? There is no fever? Sela rushed to feel him. She completely forgot that she was literally sitting on the Admiral. I'm terribly sorry. The girl jumped back and blushed deeply. But Elaim said that everything was fine, and he was feeling much better while the girl tried to calm her heart. Yes, it's all thanks to you, Miss Sela, Elaim thanked, and the girl thought she was glad to see him in good health. Sitting on the sofa, the Admiral noticed that she must have a lot of questions and suggested that she ask. There was some kind of hole in your chest that was sucking in my magic. What is it? The girl poked him in the chest. Slightly embarrassed, Elaim replied that it was the heart of a siren. The siren's heart is the second heart that regulates magic. Mine has a defect, Elaim said somewhat sadly. In fact, there is a hole in it which the girl saw earlier. Sela didn't understand how this was even possible. Living with a hole in an organ was dangerous, but the Admiral added that the siren's heart had nothing to do with a physical organ. It is more like an invisible concentration of magic. The formation of a hole is accompanied by problems such as magic leakage and hypersensitivity. Headache is one of the symptoms. So that's why the amount of magic in your body is so low, Sela realized, fearing that the illness had been tormenting him for so long. The girl then asked if the other sirens could cure him, and Elaim replied that it was impossible, as no cure had yet been found for this affliction. 3 years? That's exactly how long I have left, said the man. He will die in 3 years. Sela jumped up. What is he saying? This can't be. But Elaim calmly continued to tell that all his predecessors with the defective siren's heart died at an early age. The one who lived the longest was 30, which means that his time is inexorably running out. Sela didn't understand why he was so calm, since he was talking about his own death, and the girl felt a strange feeling of heaviness in her chest. Now she understood why Elaim had been acting all this time as if he had nothing to lose. He was a man who had been preparing for death all his life. When she thinks about it, the original novel seems strange. He suddenly handed over the title of Archduke to his younger brother and retired. Most likely, while on the brink of death, Elaim was incapable of anything due to his siren heart. Such a worthless and disappointing end for the villain. But Sela doesn't want this. He can't let him die like this. After she learned that he was very different from the character in the novel, she began to open up to him. And now she really wants to create more memories together and change Elaim's meaningless ending. After all, she already managed to turn history around once. Sela suddenly moved closer to the man sitting next to her. She needed to tell him something and everything would be fine, but the expression on her face was frightening. Admiral, would you like to be friends? The girl asked.